All right, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. My name is Daniel, and my talk's going to be about mobile apps with Svelte and a new tool you haven't heard of tonight, Capacitor. But first, who am I and how did I get here? Well, I co-founded Taskbase, which is an edtech company, in 2015. And there I've been mostly programming Angular, another front-end framework, and Kotlin for the back-end. My hobby projects were mostly front-end based and Angular until the year 2022. Then I read a lot of the state of JS studies, and Svelte ranked so high, like 90% satisfaction was very high, and the Firebase channel, I think most of you probably know it, kept on going on about Svelte, so I thought, okay, let's give it a spin for the hobby project, and yeah, it was pretty much love at first sight, but I mean, I still like Angular a lot too. It's not like I prefer one over the other by much, but Svelte's pretty cool and lightweight and fast and fun. So I stuck with that, I played around a bit with it, and at the same time, my daughter, who's sitting in the back there now, turned 3, and I started playing kind of browser-based games with her, but yeah, they all looked so old. Like you had the entire browser and like maybe quarter left top was the game or something, and like as a developer, as I like always do when I see something, I think like, hey, I can do this better, and so I started to program it myself, and this is what happened. So I programmed 6 games with Svelte. For example, here you can, it's a little coloring game. You can color this. Yeah, my daughter always colors everything black. It looks brilliant afterwards. And here you have like a memory game. Yeah, I don't need to show this one, you know what memory is. And here you can kind of match shapes. Gets a bit harder, like when you scroll down. Like this one, it's pretty hard. And then people started telling me, yeah, my kids can solve all of this. So I went, okay. Made them even harder. So now it's not really toddler games anymore, but rather like toddler and preschool and maybe even adult games. Well, and yeah, this one's, for example, spotting the difference. And here you see it's like small differences you got to find in the image. And all of this is programmed with Svelte. I haven't open sourced it yet, but I have open sourced something else, which is the project I did for Svelte Hack. Svelte Hack was a hackathon that lasted for 2 months from February to April, and you could submit an open source project. And what I built is Svelte Puzzle, so one of my games I extracted, and I open sourced it, and I went one step further than with Svelte, with the toddler games. I published this on the app stores. So you could now open your phone, but don't do it now, do it after the talk, and install this Svelte puzzle on your mobile devices. You can also get it for iOS. It took about a week for this to get released, but it was pretty cool afterwards. It was released. So just to show the difference, I could also install this on the Mac, and you see this is the puzzle game now installed on my local machine. So here I added also some sounds. And yeah, now we're coming to the point of the actual talk. How did I do this? How did I go from Svelte to a mobile app? Because we're here at WebZurich, but we always like to, now we have the web skills, but maybe we want the mobile app. They have some advantages. For example, if you give a browser to your toddler, they can go to any page, but with the app, you can put in the app lock, or you have everything downloaded previously so you can play it on a plane or something. So even though PWAs are always like latest rage and why not just do a website, I found that having an actual mobile app isn't the worst thing. So today I'm going to show you how to build one in 15 minutes. And I made a small recipe to do so. It's also hosted on GitHub. And the first thing we need to do is we create a Svelte project. So let me do that now. And let me everything really big so people in the back can see it too. And great. So we create a new Svelte kit app. And we choose it pretty bare bones. We make a skeleton app. And we are using TypeScript and Prettier for this one. And while I'm installing this, I'm going to explain you my choices. So skeleton, I don't want a big app that has server-side communication. I want a really simple app that can all be bundled to be loaded just on the mobile phone. Then TypeScript and Prettier, they've been pretty much a staple of my web programming journey for a long time. TypeScript makes everything a lot safer, at least for me, better documented. I can reason about my code. And Prettier, for me, it's mostly when you want to collab with someone. It just gets formatted. You don't need to discuss how do you want to format the code. It just auto-formats everything. So now let's CD into, no, I have already CD'd. So now next step will be to check if it actually runs. And it does, and let's see how it looks like. It looks a bit boring, but it's not Svelte Kit's fault, it's our fault because we chose the boring project. And we can change that, since I have in this recipe included a small project. I first considered doing live coding, but then I noticed, after all, I cannot program an app in 10 minutes, so I pre-programmed it, and it's something I had in my backlog of apps I wanted to do, kind of, it's not there yet. But I just noticed that kids, they love emojis, and so this one is just a simple emoji bingo or emoji TikTok or whatever you want to call it. It's just random 100 emojis that you can align on a grid. Let's see whether it's liked the game or not later. And let's quickly go through the code. So it's 200 lines of code, but really it's 100 lines of code because over 100 are emojis. And Prettier thought that's the prettiest way to align them, okay. I asked ChatGPT, of course, to give me 100 emojis. It didn't turn out so well. Then I said, okay, give me the 100 most used emojis. That resulted in a useful thing. Then we have the three rows with 3 columns, which results in this grid. We have a select random emoji function, which is, maybe I could make this larger too, which is being called when you click on one of the emojis. Then here, this is how it's rendered in the HTML. So Rob has shown previously the each function, which is the for loop in Svelte. I think in no language it's memorable. You always need to look it up. You cannot just remember how to do for loops in any of the front-end based languages. It's just not possible, at least for me. The on-click handler, what happens when you click, it's this select random emoji gets toggled. And here is some basic CSS. So the CSS grid, which aligns it in a grid with a width of 90% of the screen. So you can see, it chooses the minimum of height and width. And let's quickly check that it's actually responsive. So go like this, like this. So it's well responsive. And yeah, maybe last thing to style the button a bit, gave it this deep press thing with the active thing. So, but we still didn't talk too much about the actual mobile apps, and that's what we are going to touch next. Let me go back here. So when we first created this SvelteKit project, it wasn't in static site generation mode. And what's static site generation mode? It means it's an app like it was built in 1995. So, well, it doesn't have to look like it was from then, but it's basically the server doesn't do too much work because oftentimes you'll have on the server, it's still that the pages aren't pre-assembled. The server has to do some logic to assemble what gets sent to the client. And with static site generation, this happens at build time. So everything is pre-built, and the server basically can be very stupid. It can just send those pre-built files to the client. And for example, also on the mobile, with the capacitor thing, then it becomes really simple since everything is static, it's generated already, it's there. It just can be packaged after that and sent to the mobile. And to switch to the static site generation, I have included this in this recipe, but it's basically those 3 steps. First, we install this adapter static. Second, we update the Svelte config to don't use adapter auto, but use adapter static, and to write into the dist folder. It's just the name where the output of our app is written to. So let's check whether this runs. Oh, it doesn't. Let's check. Must be fully pre-rendered. I forgot the third thing of my recipe. Yeah, you need to add this layout file in routes. I'm not going to go too much into that. It just tells you or tells the app to pre-render everything. So let's try again. Okay. Green's always good. My wife knows, red, bad. Unless it's Java logs, there's for some reason always red, I don't know. So now we have dist. So we have built the dist folder, but we still don't have a mobile app. We're getting there. Just 1 second. Next step, Capacitor. Capacitor is a tool to build mobile apps from web apps without thinking about anything. Or at least if you have something as simple as I have. So you just install Capacitor, and then you set up, you hit 2 more commands, you'll see, like this one, Capacitor CLI, installs it, and after that the Capacitor init command, and it will ask me 2 questions. How do I want to name my app? I want to name it my app, that's good. Package ID, I don't care. And it generated now this file here, capacitor config. So you see here it already has the dist folder. I don't know how it does it. It somehow magically knows that this is where I have my build. Some intelligence, very nice. You know, I don't want to understand everything. I don't understand that much about Capacitor, but it just works, and that's kind of the beauty of it. And now we can actually go ahead and set up the Android project. So having done this, we're almost there. Now what we want to do is open Android Studio. That's a step you need. It's not included in the tutorial, but you need to install Android Studio. And now comes the bit of the drum roll moment. The the moment that has most often failed in the preparation of this talk. I don't know why Android Studio was a bit buggy recently for me, but it seems to work now, I think. So the drum roll. Yeah, it takes a bit to load the thing. Pixel is starting the phone, it's loading the app. And you have a mobile app. It's pretty amazing. I mean, we went from web app to mobile app with like nothing. We didn't do anything. We just installed Capacitor, basically. So you see, it's working, but it's a bit weird. It's like, it's making this blue highlight when I click it. Yeah, it's not quite optimized. So let's quickly add the iOS project too, and after, oh, no, that was Android again. Why was it Android again? Let's add iOS 2, just to see that we can just as easily also add an iOS project. And that's the other thing. I don't know whether it's even possible to develop an iOS app without a Mac, because they're pretty protective about everything. So, and this one tended to work pretty well. So you hit this play button at the top, the build succeeds, and it will look a bit off somewhere. It generated this. Okay, here's the app. What's it doing? Yeah, it looks a bit off. So you see there's some need for optimization. It compiled out of the box, but it doesn't look great out of the box. But it's nothing we can't fix with a little bit of optimization, but we need to cry because it's not as cool as if we wouldn't have to do anything. But yeah, otherwise we'd go out of work, right? So don't want that either. So first thing we're doing is we are changing the viewport. It's just something to make it a bit better aligned on iOS. The second thing we are doing is, it's so good that I have this all prepared. The second thing is we are changing the styling. So, for example, I don't want, since it's an app for toddlers and they do everything with their hands, so they zoom in and then they can't zoom out anymore, and I want to restrict a lot of those actions, so I disabled a lot of zooming and stuff like that. And the third thing, because all of this didn't fix our iPhone problem that it had, that it was too wide. So I have an optimized version for the app itself, which I'm going to insert now here. And the difference to the initial app is that I detect, or let Capacitor detect, that it's an iOS app. And if it's an iOS app, I set an iOS class on the button. And if this iOS class is present, I tell it to fix the font size to 35. And because somehow iOS couldn't deal with this view width thingy. I don't know why, but it seems to be the case. So now, in order to re-render it, what we first need to do is compile the app again, such that the new build is in the dist folder. And once it's compiled, we need to also move what's inside of the dist folder into the Android and iOS build folders. And to do that, we run npx capsync. And now we should have an updated project that looks a little bit less weird. We need to rerun this. I can tell you that the Apple Xcode thing is the most horrible thing ever. It's like they always tell you, oh, if you want to upload something to the App Store, it must be so perfect and user-friendly, but yeah. Anyhow, it's a lot better now. I don't know where this weird, yeah, okay. So it's better aligned from the size. You cannot randomly zoom in anymore. And now we've got a pretty functional app that we can ship and sell to millions of users. And Apple only takes 30%, but probably no one's going to buy it anyway. So yeah, that's that, basically. So conclusion for my use case. Svelte and Capacitor was really perfect. I didn't use any native features on the phone. I had a page that could be built into this static site. I could leverage my web skills to build this. But apparently Capacitor is not perfect for everyone. So in this 2022 State of JS study, the popularity of Capacitor dropped by quite a bit, so it's now at 70%, which means 30% are not liking it. I don't know the exact reasons for it. I think most probably is performance, because if you want to build something highly performant, you usually want to develop native, like really Swift and Android, like Kotlin stuff. And the second thing, yeah, I think if you want to access a lot of native features on the phone, I think it might also not be perfect. But if your use case is as simple as mine, it can really spark some joy by letting you take your web app, stuff it into this mobile shell, and then you can ship it. Then you can bring it into the App Store. Devil is in the details. You need to optimize a bit until it looks okay. But yeah. And the bonus tip is like toddlers are great at QA. Like you give it to them, they do things you'd never expect. They take like at least 10 fingers, maybe a foot, and try to play the game. It's basically what they tell us what QA people do all day. So yeah, that's it from my side.